Good evening and welcome to the Winthrop School Committee meeting of Monday, December 6, 2021. Patty, can you please call the roll?
Ms. Barry?
Here.
Mr. Boncory?
Here.
Mr. Matucci?
Yep.
Ms. Swope?
Present.
Ms. Powell?
Present.
Mr. Perrin?
Here. Okay, for the Pledge of Allegiance, Ms. Swope, will you lead us, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Do you have any public comment this evening? Hearing none. We'll move on. Delegates and visitors, I don't believe we have any this evening. Now we have minutes of the November 22nd, 2021 meeting. Can I get a motion to approve those minutes?
Motion.
Motion by Ms. Swope,
Second.
second by Ms. Powell. Any discussion on the minutes? Patty, can you please call the roll?
Ms. Barry?
Yes.
Mr. Boncory?
I abstain. I wasn't
Mr.
here.
Matucci?
Yes.
Ms. Swope?
Yes.
Ms. Powell?
Yes.
Mr. Perrin?
Abstain, I wasn't at that meeting as well. Okay, moving on to financial and business procedures, we have warrant SVW 22-9, the amount of $150,327.90. Do I have a motion for that amount?
Motion. Second.
Motion by Mr. Matucci, seconded by President Boncory. Any discussion on warrant SVW 22-9? Hearing none. Patty, can I get the roll call vote, please, on that?
Ms. Barry?
Yes.
Mr. Boncory?
Yes.
Mr. Matucci?
Yes.
Ms. Swope?
Yes.
Ms. Powell?
Yes.
Mr. Perrin?
Yes. Next up, we have the payroll warrant SVW 22-12 in the amount of $812,800.50. Do I have a motion for that amount?
Motion.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Barry, seconded by Mr. Matucci. Any discussion on the payroll warrant? Hearing none. Patty, can I have a roll call vote, please?
Ms. Barry?
Yes.
Mr. Boncory?
Abstain.
Mr. Matucci?
Yes.
Ms. Swope?
Yes.
Ms. Powell?
Yes.
Mr. Perrin?
Abstain. Moving on, we have no budget transfers this evening, is that correct?
None at all.
There are no building and grounds requests. Next up is general functions. We have a report from the subcommittee on policy. Jen, you want to bring us up to speed on what that meeting was?
Yes, we had a subcommittee meeting tonight to discuss our foster care and homeless policy, homeless student policies. These are some changes that we're making to keep us in line with regulations. They are current practices but not stated clearly in our policies, so we are revising those to reflect state policies and requirements.
And that'll be coming before the full committee for a full reading.
Correct. Next week, or next meeting.
Excellent. Anything further? All set?
All set.
Ms. Howard, do you have anything for us this evening on the superintendent's report?
I do. I would like to give you an update. COVID case reporting is always a nice topic to begin with. Last time I reported numbers, I believe, up until November 4th. So going to just go back and look at some of those numbers. So from November 4th through the 10th, we reported one student positive with COVID and 0 staff members. Between the 11th and the 17th, we had a great week, 0 reports of students, 0 reports of staff. And then this week, we began to see an uptick, as is almost every other school in the Commonwealth and hospitals, if you are watching and listening to that information, probably due to the holidays and travel and the like. And this week, between the 18th and the 1st of December, we reported 11 students who came back with positive tests and 0 staff members. Working on the vaccination updates. So as you all know, the pediatric COVID vaccination clinic was held here in town. I believe they're doing a booster clinic for adults, which is inclusive of school staff members if they'd like to get their booster. And I believe they are working on another pediatric clinic once doses become available in the community. I know a lot of folks have their second dose for the pediatric session already scheduled. So we have sent out, and we beginning back, I want to say in early October, we started with our high school students and our staff sending out a request to have them upload their completed vaccination card. So it's an app that you can log into, ask you a few questions, you take a photo of your vaccination card, upload it, and it gets submitted to the school nurses who verify it and can verify it through the town's public system as well as being a true and valid indicator of your vaccine. So when we started the process, our staff members kind of quickly uploaded. I think some of our parents were a little bit hesitant. It was also a little bit confusing in the beginning. Sent out some reminders. We tweaked the system a little to make it a little bit easier. And that was for our students in grades 7 through 12 who are age eligible at the time. And then all staff members, cafeteria, office staff, anyone who works under the roof of the building, full-time or part-time as an employee by building, we're asking them to submit this information. Of course, it's not mandatory, but it is helpful to us in a number of ways. And now that the pediatric dose is available for students in kindergarten through 6th grade, we have recently, I believe it went out today, sent out a request to those parents, students of that age level, for parents who by now may have completed 2 doses of that pediatric vaccine, for them to start uploading their information to us. We also sent out a reminder this week, I believe that goes tomorrow, to families that if they haven't at the 7 through 12 level submitted their vaccination status, if they could please do that, and staff as well. And the idea behind it is we don't know what's coming on January 15th. We do not know what the Department of Education is going to tell us about mask wearing, whether it's going to continue to be mandatory, or whether they're going to allow those who are vaccinated to remove masks. Our differentiated mask wearing policy, which this committee accepted back, I believe, at the end of August, speaks to the need to provide proof of that vaccination status. So we want to get as much information in our hands as possible so that if and when the Department of Education and the state make any changes, that we're ready to go and we don't have to wait to collect data. So we're encouraging any of our families, if they struggle with doing it, a simple phone call to the school, and the school nurse or principal can walk folks through submitting it, and we can always take a hard copy picture of what you have if you can't get it uploaded. So we're going to keep an eye on that. I'll give you some numbers in terms of what we had as of today, in terms of submission. So at the middle school level, again, we're only collecting grade 7 and 8 vaccination status of our students. We had 120 students out of 301, combined number of grade 7 and 8. We're up to 120 submissions of their vaccination status, so we hope to get that number up soon. In grades 9 through 12, out of 565 students, we have 159 families who have uploaded their students' completed vaccination card for our record. And at the Cummings School and the Fort Banks, we've had some folks who have brought it to us because we didn't have a portal that would take that grade level. As of today, that portal has been adjusted, so if your child is in kindergarten through 6th grade, you can now access that portal. So we encourage you to do that. It also helps us when there is a positive case in the school. If we know that your child is vaccinated by looking at their record, it saves us time in having to worry about contact tracing and phone calls. You still get a phone call. However, it lets us do our work a little bit quicker at the school level if we have that information in front of us for staff and students. I did hear some rumblings that some folks were not happy. We had to do some contact tracing in one of our athletic groups over the weekend, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And we needed to bring in some support to do that because the number was large that we needed to look at, and not necessarily that we thought was going to be have to quarantine or test and stay, but we needed to do our contact tracing and our due diligence. We work with Cataldo Ambulance. They've been assigned to us by the state in the test and stay program. State offers additional support for school systems to do that contact tracing when there is a big issue or a big concern that you need to act quickly on. Our goal is to make sure our kids stay on the fields, on the courts, in the schools. So the faster we react and the more attention we pay to each incident, it results in our kids being able to stay in school and be on fields and be on courts more often than not. So some folks were not happy that Winthrop Public School staff did not call them to talk to them about an exposure for their child. I'm here to let you know that they are part of our team. Cataldo Ambulance is part of our team. They work with us, and it was along with Meredith and Tara Bowie, and they are certainly a support system for us. So I know that sometimes it doesn't feel so great if it's somebody you don't know. However, they are working with us, and I believe they reveal that when they call. So, next step is, we got a couple of donations that have come in over the past week. I want to thank the Zonta Foundation. They are a stable force in the Winthrop Public Schools and have donated gift cards to us year in and year out. They donate $25 gift cards to Stop and Shop, and several of them for us at our own accord to hand out to needy families during the holiday season. So those go to the principals who have worked very closely with the adjustment counselors to identify families in need, along with all the other fundraising activities and donations that we have. We also received a donation from I'm going to say it and I'll get corrected, I hope if I'm wrong, the Wasabi Technologies, under the direction of CFO Michael Welts, provided a donation of 100 general admission seats to the Wasabi Fenway Bowl on December 29th at 11 o'clock. Just a little bit of history. In December of 2020, the Fenway Bowl launched the Fenway Bowl Honor Roll. It's a charitable program focused on recognizing and thanking educational institutions and educators who have gone above and beyond to support their students in respective communities during the pandemic. The Fenway Bowl Honor Roll programs thanks educators and institutions who went above and beyond to support their students and community by highlighting the achievements of teachers, guidance counselors, and administrators from across New England. This year, they announced the formation of an executive committee in which they had 16 organizations that would provide strategic recommendations to foster the game's educational and community-oriented mission. And in this particular group, we have somebody who is within our school system, Miss Julie Barry, who runs Wasabi's brand and communication organization, and she made the company aware of the heroic efforts of the Winthrop Public School staff and community in helping support all of our students during the pandemic. Accordingly, he has provided, the CFO of the company, Michael Welts, has provided the school district with that donation of 100 general admission seats to recognize the high performance of our high school football and cheerleading organizations and others. And we can use those tickets on the 29th. So we'd like to thank them and thank Julie for that recommendation. Julie's going to work with our athletic director to figure out how to get those tickets. Of course, everything is an app, so I'll let the technology people handle that, and they're going to work together. I don't know if you want to add anything to it, Julie. I just think it's a great opportunity for our kids to get out to Fenway.
Yeah, no, this was a really great program. We are going to be sponsoring this for 5 years. We're the title sponsor of the game at Wasabi, and Mike is actually the chief marketing officer. Might have been a typo in the letter. I don't know.
Oh, yep. Or a typo in my mouth, one of the two.
Yeah, so we have, as part of the philanthropic efforts of the game, we're provided with a number of donation tickets that we can provide to different educational causes and stuff like that.
And who's playing in the games? Do we know yet?
Yeah, I just went to a gala event last night. Virginia and Southern Methodist University.
Oh, yeah. So it's a cool college game.
Yeah, definitely. It's going to be a lot of great activations, a really fun fan zone event happening before the game, so it's a good
Kids just love to
opportunity.
be in Fenway.
Yeah,
You know, they just
very
love
cool.
to be in Fenway. That's great, so thank you for that.
You're welcome.
And then just one more piece of information I'd like to share with the school committee. We here in the public school have seen a significant increase in the number of public record requests that we have been receiving this year as opposed to other years. Me now being in my 5th year, I've received several in the past, but not at the rate or the flow or the intensity in terms of what is being requested. Most of it is related to topics such as diversity, equity, and inclusion, curriculum contained in any diversity, equity, and inclusion practices here in the school, some relative to student misconduct and asking questions about student investigations here at the school level, staff attendance, and professional development information in terms of the detail of professional development that we're providing, who we're providing it to, who's attending, and the like. Some of this information subject to disclosure under, as many of us know, Mass General Law 66, Section 10, but some is not. And there's well-known exemptions from the disclosure under, as Brian and Phil may know, Section 7 or other applicable laws. So I'm bringing that matter to your attention for a couple of reasons. Our school district does not have one individual member assigned to deal with public record requests and the gathering of that information. And it's not simply gathering of information, it's gathering of information, could potentially be redacting hundreds of pages of information, determining what is exempt from record law, what is not exempt from record law, determining if documents exist, because under the public record law, you don't have to create a document. Oftentimes, people are asking questions that result in the creation of documents, which you actually don't have to do. But you also have to be very mindful of what exists that is not created, but should be revealed. So on top of the amount of work involved in sort of looking at the request and figuring out what it is that you have to do, there's also a legal aspect to it. We are dealing with student information, staffing information. We don't want to violate any of the rules that could potentially cause litigation for us on top of a Freedom of Information Act. So we have a school attorney, Attorney Paul Hodnett, who has been kept somewhat busy with these requests. I'm not an attorney. I don't pretend to be one. I can read the law, but I do have to run a lot of this by him, which is a cost to the school district every time we speak with him. To date, I've been the primary person responding to these records requests. However, the time associated with the ongoing request is really no longer feasible under my role as the superintendent of schools. So at the next school committee, I plan to provide you with a recommended amount of money. We don't have a line item for this, so there's no line item in the current school budget for record requests. We can charge people for record requests. However, the amount of money that we're able to charge typically does not cover the cost of putting the record together and the amount of work and time that is involved in that. So at the next meeting, I do plan to provide an amount of money that we could potentially use to create a line and also provide suggestions to the committee as to where to take that money from, because it has to come from somewhere. So if we're getting these huge requests for this type of information, we have to go into the school's budget to say, if I need to create a line item of $10,000 has to come out of somewhere else. So I'll work with the principals, I'll work with Noel to see where that money may come from, and then come back to the committee with a suggestion. I would like to, as a matter of public record, read 4 of the requests that have come in, and at the next meeting, I will have the time to get anything prior to this, just for this school year, so that they're read into the record and that you know what is being requested. So I'll start with the first one. August 21st, Laura Plummer, 19 Trask Street, Unit 2, Gloucester, Mass. I believe this was a request from a reporter for the transcript. Correspondence sent to the Winthrop Public School Committee in opposition to its diversity, equity, and inclusion website prior to the website being shut down. Also, any correspondence from the community urging the website to be put back up. That record request was back in August. I can tell you it was subsequently removed by the requester based on the cost to produce that record after I did all the work in figuring out what the cost was to produce that record. August 19th, received from Todd Sacco, 41 Emerson Road, Winthrop, Mass. I would like to request all emails between all school committee members and the superintendent between August 11th and August 18th. I would also like to see all emails received by all school committee members from non-school committee and non-administration email addresses for the same date range. Again, after the work was done to determine how many emails that would take and what the cost associated to redact any other information from all those emails, that request was subsequently revoked. So the information was gathered, person decided that the fee was too high, and they didn't want that. November 18th, public record request received from Todd Sacco, 41 Emerson Road, Winthrop, Mass. Hi, I would like to get the following questions answered. Please provide any backup documentation that supports these answers. How many Winthrop Public School staff members are currently on the diversity, equity, and inclusion team? What roles do they currently hold in the district, and what school departments are represented? Number 2, how much money was spent on the New York University professional development program that focused on diversity, equity, and inclusion? How many hours of professional development were delivered? What was the schedule, format of delivery, and how many staff participated? Question number 3, When will the DEI website be shared, and can access to the Winthrop Public Schools specific DEI webpage or screenshot grabs be made available? Number 4, what curriculum materials have been distributed, and can we have access to those materials? What grades are the materials geared toward, and what academic capacity will they be introduced? Question number 5, how has the $20,000 allocated to the professional development for school year 21-22 been allocated? What is the current professional development schedule? Who is sponsoring and leading the trainings, and on what topics? How many staff members participated in the trainings offered thus far? I'm in the process of gathering that information. On December 13th, public record request, Todd Sacco, 41 Emerson Road, Winthrop, Mass. Good day, I'd like to request the following information: the names of all history, social studies, civics, and government teachers, an outline of early childhood, elementary, middle school, and high school curriculum, titles of all textbooks used in each subject area in each grade, modifications to lessons made after September 9th, 2021, and an outline of the incorporation of information disseminated during a recent DEI or NYU-led professional development. That came in on November 29th, and I have not taken the time just yet to get into that information. So as you can see, and again, the detail of these is being provided so that you can understand that this is the enormity of some of these requests, not everything that would be provided to folks, but at this point in time, we're going to need some support in gathering that information and making sure. I do have 3 or 4 other requests that have not run through Paul Hodnett yet, and I don't run every single one. Some of these are easy, and again, it's a record that exists. So determining whether a question can have an answer that's reflective of a document that exists is pretty much how you have to approach each one of these. And they're not light, but I felt that full disclosure to the committee, this is what's coming to the way of the school department, and is consuming a great deal of my time. So at this point in time, I think bringing someone else to the table to be able to start to go through some of those. Now, who that person is going to be, I don't know. But I will come back to the next meeting with information relative to that. And I just wanted you to be aware that money is going to have to come from somewhere to address these issues. And that's the end of my report.
Thank you. Do we have anything under personnel, appointments, resignations, retirements, postings, or leaves of absence?
Can I ask a question for her?
First, do you have any,
I don't. I do not.
I'm sorry, Ms. Swope, go ahead.
Thank you. Who decides on how much we can charge?
So that's a standard that's set by the AG's office, Attorney General's office. Very specific amount in terms of the time. Who you have to pick the lowest paid person who's capable of doing the job in your organization.
But in this case, because it's such a specialized area, some of the things that are there,
Sometimes
it
it's me.
can't be
Right.
someone that's at such a low level, so it does start to cost more than what the standard is.
Yeah, and you have to have a person who's knowledgeable of what the question and where the information exists and how it exists and how it can then be disseminated. So it's pretty tricky. And not that we mind giving the information. We have no,
It's the cost. I'm just asking.
sometimes the information is on the website, when you pop on to the school's curriculum, it gives us a good indication of people who don't look at the website, because if you jump on the website, you can go to the curriculum tab, which will take you to the scope and sequence in each school building. And if you're involved in public education, you know that curriculum is lots of stuff versus the standards. We teach the standards that we're expected to teach. And in many cases, the curriculum is not just one thing. It's multiple materials. And again, if it's a curriculum such as, a reading curriculum that we're using, or illustrative math, the curriculum, we can reveal that, and we do, and you'll see it on our website. But if a teacher is using something, some material that they're using for a writing program. I mean, when we talk about going through our curriculum and looking at our curriculum, we're looking at novels and books that we use to make sure that, it's at the right level for our kids at all grade levels. So, again, I feel like the school committee should be aware of this. I haven't had this level of request before. I don't expect it to slow down based on what I'm hearing from, folks on the outside. And if it doesn't, the impact is gonna be on students, because when the money has to come from somewhere, we are, in the 80s in terms of the percent of staffing versus anything else. So there's not a lot of wiggle room there. So I think it's important to understand that that level of request, money's gotta come from somewhere.
Questions through the chair?
Do you have a question?
I have a question. Do you have a sense of how much we've spent in years past on FOI requests?
I don't, we can look at that. I'm not sure, we'd have to go back in the record. I know what I have done, I can easily go back and look at that, it's been minimal. I think if I do 2 a year, the difficulty is, when they come in, you have to give people an estimate of how much it's gonna cost, that's part of the process. Well, to give an estimate, you have to have an estimate when people ask for emails for 6 months between 80 people. I have to have somebody pull those emails. Up until this school year, I had one person who was working the whole district's technology department, who I'd have to pull aside to pull the emails. And then I'd have to sit there and count them. And then I'd have to estimate the amount of time to go through every one of those emails to make sure that there is no revealing information in there that is outside of what the person is asking for. Because sometimes it'll be an email between 2 people that's been asked for, but there'll be student names in there. There'll be other revealing data that cannot be shared. It's exempt from the public record, and so it's not as simple as just, we'll query those emails and get them right over to you. They all have to be reviewed. So I can give you a sense of, but it's minimal. It's minimal.
That's fine.
Yeah, I can get that information for you.
That would be, I think that would be useful as a benchmark.
Sure.
Ms. Swope?
This is a question that's not related to that, but related to something else in the report. Lisa, as I recall, you said that if we had 80% of those vaccinated, that we may have the exemption that we were looking for.
You can apply for the exemption,
Right.
correct?
But so far, I would say 279 doesn't meet 712.
We're in the 30s, for a percentage rate right now.
And the 80%
So, and
is-
80% has to be, and at the conference I was at this past weekend, I learned that there's 29 school districts that have applied out of the 300 or so school districts that have applied for that exemption. 24 of them were approved, and that there were 2 groups that didn't get approved, and it was a middle-high school combination similar to ours. So the school district asked for the high school, because on that side of the building, 80% of the kids and every staff member, so it's not just the kids, it's anyone who works in that building or goes to school there. Cafeteria staff, custodial staff, teachers, paras. If you're at 80%, you can ask the state to look at your data, certified that you have all this information, and say yes or no. And in the cases of the middle high school combinations, they were only asking for half of the physical building, and like us, they were separated by school, and they were not granted it because the middle school wasn't at 80%. They weren't asking for it, but it was in the same physical building. I don't think we would be in that situation if we ever did have to ask for it. If we would reach that point, because our middle school and high school are pretty much step and toe in terms of where they're at with the total amount. Hopefully we'll see more. It'll be very interesting to see what happens on January 15th. I think we'll know by the 14th. Typically, they tell us 20 minutes before they announce it out to the public about what direction they're gonna take. It's hard to tell, with what are they looking at? Are they looking at the uptick in numbers? Are they looking at the success rates in schools?
Just
Who
that we're not
knows?
close. And I think maybe, I don't know if you send out notices about this all the time, but just to remind parents that are interested in changing the mask policy, for us,
Yeah.
that if the state goes with this 80%, then we need to step our game up.
Yeah, that's why those notices are going out. One went out at 4 today, and I believe the next one's tomorrow.
May I ask a question?
Yes, Ms. Becker.
So I know As of the last meeting, we suggested that we add like an interstitial on the website, so when folks go to the website, they get a pop-up that says, submit your information, which I think has been really helpful because.
Yeah,
some
that's been up,
people-
you've seen that, right?
Yep, so some people I think have missed that, so, I'm wondering if it makes sense for the middle school and the high school social media accounts to promote and actually put the link right on their Facebook pages.
You can ask them to do that,
I
yeah.
think that might be helpful, so many people are on Facebook. And, the other thing too is, I read an article recently about Hopkinton who, received approval for the mask policy to be lifted, and it was a very positive, experience for them.
Mhm.
They've done it, the school committee had voted there for a test for 3 weeks, and they just extended it for another 3 weeks. And they're seeing really positive results, and so I think it's something that people should read, because I think
Yeah.
it's encouraging.
And I can take some of the pressure off of the school committee, because to ask for the 80% exemption, the school committee does not have to approve that. So that comes directly from the superintendent to the Department of Education. Not that I wouldn't keep you informed, not that I wouldn't talk to you about that, but it does not require a school committee vote, which I find interesting, because you have to vote on just about everything else. But if we're reaching that point, or we're getting information, and depending upon what happens on the 15th, we may be talking about it, again, relatively soon. So we are encouraging people to get their data in, irregardless of whether you support it or not. It also helps if your child's in school and is a close contact, or someone in their classroom tests positive, to know that your child is vaccinated sends us in a little bit of a different direction in terms of whether test and stay, whether or not your child has to quarantine. So it is helpful to us to have that information. Everyone has the right to or not to provide that, and at this point in time, that's not required.
Any further questions for the superintendent from her report? We have no new business. We have some unfinished business this evening. We have a second reading and adoption of the revised policy for criminal offender records, the Corey review policy. I'd ask for a motion to waive the reading, and then we'll have a motion to accept it as recommended by the policy committee. Do I have a motion?
Yes.
So motion to waive the second reading and to accept it as sent forth by the policy committee.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Martucci. Any discussion? Hearing none. Patty, can we have a roll call vote?
Ms. Barry?
Yes.
Mr. Boncory?
Yes.
Mr. Matucci?
Yes.
Ms. Swope?
Yes.
Ms. Powell?
Yes.
Mr. Perrin?
No. Moving on, superintendent goals, I believe that's Mr. Martucci, I believe that's in process.
After the new members this morning, we'll be reviewing the goals.
Excellent. Motion for adjournment?
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
Motion by Mr. Martucci, second by Ms. Powell. Patty, can we have a roll call vote?
Ms. Barry?
Yes.
Mr. Boncory?
Yes.
Mr. Matucci?
Yes.
Ms. Swope?